Hello and welcome. Today I want to share a little bit about a younger version of myself. And I suppose anytime you share a version of yourself, it's always going to be a younger version. Kind of like a photograph is always going to be a moment of the past, and we carry around these memorials to a moment where the angle and the perspective have all been the same. And yet the photographs still manage to create new spurious thoughts and inspirations. It's a fascinating thing indeed. Anyway, my dad used to say all sorts of truisms when I was younger, and I've shared a few of them with you, but today I want to share one that he just could not stop saying when I was younger. It's almost as if he didn't understand the profundity of his sentiment. But again, when you go and share it with others, make sure to let them know. Like, Mike Nolan literally cannot stop saying this. It's an anonymous quote, or maybe it was said by someone. Don't Google it, but just let them know Mike Nolan said this. He said, it's better to be silent and be thought of a fool than to open your mouth and remove any doubt. And I tell you what, he would literally never stop saying that. And I think it's kind of interesting because, you know, I don't have any doubts about where my foolishness comes from, so that's pretty nice. But that idea of remaining silent kind of always stuck with me as sort of like an ability sort of to gather information rather than jump to conclusions on information. And I've told the story of my time in the Navy on here, where I was sort of processed out after coming out as trans and stuff, and there's that 18-month window. But I want to take you to a very particular time, and that's when I re-enlisted, because there was a moment there, February 2nd, 2022, 2/2/2022, and I loved it. But I was under the impression that I was re-enlisting to follow orders to my next command. And then I got to my next command and everything sort of fell out from under me. And the representation through the documents of the story paint me out to be someone. And it reminds me of a little story called To Kill a Mockingbird. In there, there's a character by the name of Dolphus Raymond. He is the town drunk. He would walk around and drink his beer and brew, and everyone thought him to be an idiot. And one day, the child of the story, I'm sorry, I don't know these characters' names, but comes up to Dolphus Raymond with an upset stomach, and Dolphus offers him a drink of the brew. And as it turns out, Dolphus has been drinking Coca-Cola the entire time. I don't know if he's actually sponsored by Coca-Cola. We're gonna pretend it was Nuka-Cola Crystal Flat, just so that we don't get in any trouble, because I know Coca-Cola has a certain shade of red that I think the Nuka-Cola red is really close to. Do you think that, anyway, they might be related actually, now that I think about it. Do you think Nuka-Cola is a play off of Coca-Cola? Fallout does it again. But I re-enlisted, and that re-enlistment would have been for, I think, 4-6 years, I don't know. An extra 2 on top of the 6 years I had initially enlisted for in 2018, which would mean that I'd be at 8 years, 2026 would be my time to process out. And with the court judgment recently that the trans people are getting processed out, I think back to the time between me getting out and now, and how me getting out happened to just be a stroke of good fortune. Because independent of what would have happened had I decided to stay and fight that battle, knowing to walk away in defense of my own self, my sense of self, I'm not going to sacrifice who I am, independent of, oh, you signed your life away for this. Yes, I didn't sign away my identity for it, though. There's a very big difference. I can do the job of an electronics technician without issue. As a matter of fact, I would say with excellence, I do the job of an electronics technician. Even to this day, I still do the job of an electronics technician. Sorry, I'm not supposed to talk about work on here. But the representation that was cast of me from the medical pursuit focused heavily on a period in 2018 where I attended an alcohol awareness course. And they tried to paint me out as an alcoholic concurrent to that assessment that was about five years prior, I think. And being represented as an alcoholic while you are in a period where you're not drinking to try and like handle anxiety rather than avoiding it, because hypothetically speaking, let's say you don't necessarily have an alcohol problem, but you have an avoidance problem, and that sort of avoidance was the world coming down and crashing around you as you witness a possible 20-year career being ripped out from under you because you came out during a time where you thought it would be safe to come out, and then you realized people are still people, so it happens. But when I was in that office for legal and they said, we could fight for you, and they offered to sort of like continue going to bat for me against the medical sort of representation of me, I remember saying, what are you gonna do? Like, it's been a few months you've had my paperwork and didn't get it processed. Like, what are you gonna do now except prolong the sort of suffering I'm experiencing? And they didn't have really a good answer for that. They never really do. But when I ultimately separated, there's still that like uncertainty of, was that the right move? Did I play things out as I should have? And so instead of continuing to live under sort of a system of oppression that it was wild. It's like the invisible hand that operates between legislation, how people sort of will twist words and contort them to be able to justify their own rudeness to each other. And I think from those experiences, I don't really enjoy being particularly rude to others outside of in joking contexts. But that decision to sort of step away was one of the biggest shields I raised. I spoke about having low self-esteem in my devlog episode, and my therapist had described getting misgendered as 1,000 tiny daggers, where each one doesn't particularly hurt, but when you add up 1,000 tiny daggers, you start to get to big cuts. And if you don't stop those cuts from occurring and happening and growing, it'll allow you to let your mind attack yourself, which isn't a good state for people who have low self-esteem. It's actually important to sort of make sure you keep control of stuff like that. But learning that and applying it, and then getting to an opportunity where I got to demonstrate it against a sort of large abstract force like the Navy, it left a lot of doubt in me, but at the same time, now I have certainty that there wouldn't have been a 20-year career for me in the Navy. And there's some degree of sorrow for those who are going to be dismissed from service. But I think out of it all, I absolutely love that in a time where everyone was telling me, we can fight, oh, we're on your side, we're fighting for you. And it's all of these people saying they supported me, that I had the cognizance to be like, these people don't know how to do their job. Because if I can read a regulation and know how something operates and then see it in practice, it does not take long to get signatures. And do you know how far the legal office is from the CEO's office? Just down the hall. So at what point during the 3 months where they had my paperwork were they planning on addressing it? Because they waited right up to the 90-day limit to make first contact with me after I submitted it. Very interesting stuff. But raising my shield and protecting myself in that moment gave me the ability to blossom anew, because from the seeds of that collapse, I made the decision to stay where I was located rather than moving back to my hometown in Washington. And building something from scratch on your own isn't necessarily the easiest thing to do, but there is so much fun in getting to push the limits of what we can accomplish that, make the pursuit worthwhile. And even though the political rhetoric is so sort of sour regarding trans people, one of the things I'm most thankful for is the love and support I receive in my life on this YouTube. And, politics may suck ass, but it's still a sunny day outside. So, allowing the military the opportunity to call me an alcoholic, which I don't know if you remember from my initial story, but the reason I had to take that alcohol awareness class is because someone called me an alcoholic, and I let him know that if he called me an alcoholic again, I'd beat his ass. Because he wasn't saying you're an alcoholic as a matter of concern for my well-being, but rather as a means of dismissal. And that dismissal is more illustrated after coming out and sort of having positions like work center soup, and then moving over to the watch floor where you're no longer sort of seen by the chain of command. You can be hidden from everyone if you just work 12 hours at night, much like the 7-Eleven incident. But it all builds upon each other and echoes throughout time, and it's almost beautiful how it happens. In Dark Souls, we're revisiting the Tomb of the Giants. I have to do some farming of white titanite chunks. Really low drop rate. I did not realize how much I did not like Tomb of the Giants the first time, but the first time I didn't even have my lantern. Now I have my lantern at least, so that's good. But even still, you run, you gotta blow up the 5, and then it's like, if you don't get any, you just gotta go and do it again, and you gotta keep doing it, and you gotta get so many of these white titanite chunks, and they don't even drop all the time. Anyway, that's where we're at now, but I'm super excited because after we get this occult weapon, we can go back to Anne Orlando, and then after we're in Anne Orlando, we can go and take on Gwendolyn. I think I have the Dark Moon Seance ring already, but we will be certain of that when I see you next time for the Dark Souls. Anyway, I just wanted to share one of the things about protecting yourself is it makes you realize what you are protecting. And it's an interesting experience to come out as trans and then have an entire sort of organization sort of just undermine it and then go, well, you don't have to fucking worry about that, right? You don't want to be the problem child. And then you go and start applying for jobs after the Navy and we've read about your kind. I'm sure you have. We're like Bigfoot, Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. I think in the future, I just want to share more about the journey from where I was to where I am and then where I'm going, because there's a lot and it's all so beautiful. Anyway, these opportunities to sort of bear witness to the wonders of the world only come about because of the decision to protect myself all those years ago. And it sort of reminds me at times that even though it hurts to not be able to achieve the things I had wanted to achieve at that time, those weren't the proper things for me to want to achieve, because the things I want to achieve now are so much bigger than serving in a military organization. The things I've learned about my trade from being in the military are incredibly beneficial, and I've experienced a great degree of sort of financial stability as a result of my time in service, especially given that I get to study with the GI Bill and stuff. But it's much the same as how I'm a communist who uses Amazon. We live in a world, there is limits to what I'm going to do in my personal life to sort of try and capitulate. Well, I'm never going to capitulate. You just ignore the villains and hope that the good guys are going to win. But if there aren't any good guys around, if you don't look on the news and see trans people that look like you and that talk like you and that think like you, turn on a camera and be the trans person who looks like you, talks like you, and thinks like you, because the world needs it. The world needs everyone, to be honest. It wouldn't be the world without everyone. Anyway. All that being said, Thank you again for joining me. It's been a wonderful journey, and I'm so glad that I get to share it with you. I'll see you in Dark Souls for the next one. Have a good one. Bye.